So before we actually paint the scuffs on the base, I'm just going to see if I can improve the look of our scratches. So I'm just going to zoom in here a couple times just so we can kind of see them up close. Alright, and then let's go down and make sure we have that layer selected still. Layer 1, okay, and let's actually change the name. We'll call it scratches. Alright, so we can keep track. Alright, so I'm just going to see if I can give these a little more depth. Okay, so let's go up and add a layer style to it. Alright, layer style, and I'm going to do a stroke. Okay, open that up, and we'll take the size down to 1 pixel. Alright, I'm going to leave the position on outside, and let's change the color here. Alright, I did a test before, so I'm just going to do a medium gray, so I'm going to do 9F, 9F, 9F. Okay, so just like a medium tone gray. We'll say OK, and then I'm going to change the blend mode to multiply to darken it up. Alright, and we'll leave the opacity at 100%, and hit OK. Alright, so you can see it here. You can always turn that on and off with the little eye down here. Okay, so it's subtle, but I think it just adds a little more pop to it. It makes it look a little more like it's actually scratched into the paint layer. Okay. It could also give, maybe the look that it might be starting to rust the metal underneath. Alright, so just a little more realistic, and if you don't like the look of it, you can tweak it, or you can just leave it off entirely, but I think it just adds a little extra to it, so I'm going to do it. Alright, so now we'll start painting the scuffs on the base, and we're almost done here, I think. Okay, so for the scuffs down here, I'm just going to create a new layer above our scratch layer. Okay, and we'll go over and just open up the color box, okay, and let's just tweak this. I'm just going to use a pretty dark gray, I think. Alright, maybe down here somewhere, and okay. Alright, and I think I'm going to set the layer to multiply as well. Okay, so let's just do that first. Okay, and then we'll zoom in on the bottom down here. Let's turn our UVs back on as well. Okay, and I'm just going to go grab the paintbrush again, and I'm going to use the same brush I was using up here on the scratches, and we'll just start kind of scuffing this up a bit. And we'll just start on the corner here. You can tell the corners by the single edge. Okay, so I'm just going to go in here and just start kind of scuffing the corner up so it looks like it might have got kicked by somebody's boot or something else. Alright, I'll just go along and kind of hit each one. Alright, this one too. Alright, and the end one's split in half, so we just got to make sure that whatever we add on this side, we finish off on the other end, just so they match up. Okay, and I'm just going to go in and maybe add just a few little marks on the corners. I'll try to zoom in here so it's a little easier to see. Alright, just on the edges maybe of these pieces a little bit because they stick out and they might get kicked. So I'm just going to kind of do it randomly. Alright, maybe up on the top, some of those might get hit by something. Let's just touch a few of them. Right in the corner maybe. Alright, I'm just going to turn off the UVs. Make it a little easier to see what we're doing. And you don't necessarily have to do them all the same color. You could, add some color in here if you wanted to. Or maybe some to the middle portions. Not liking that one. I'm going to get rid of it. Shrink my brush down a little bit. So I'm just going to hit kind of where the edge would be. Okay, and we can also do maybe some scuff marks right across the surface, so I'm just going to draw one just in. Alright, maybe like that, and just want to be careful here because obviously if something's scraped across here, it's not going to probably scrape inside the the recessed part there. Okay, so I'm just going to go in and actually erase the part that's in the crack. Okay, just so it looks like it actually just scraped the outside and continued along. Alright. So I might just add a few, just randomly. Might not want to do them all in the same direction. So let's go maybe this way. Alright, don't like that. Let's just take it down a bit. Alright, same thing, I'm just going to erase the crack. Alright, you can add as many as you want. Let's just actually zoom back out. Take a look. Alright, I might add a few more, maybe a little thicker. Alright, so I'm just going to hit it maybe. I don't really like that one. Let's zoom in. Alright, so I'm just going to make my brush a little bigger. And maybe just add one across the bottom here. And then same thing, just go in and kind of get rid of the stuff that's in the recessed part. Okay. Alright, so I think that's probably all I'll do, but if you want to add more, you can. Alright, so let's do a save, and we'll just check it out in Max and see how it looks. Alright, so just take a quick look in Max, check it out. Okay, so that's probably fine for our dark scuffs. Again, adjust it to where you feel it needs to be. Alright, so we'll go back into Photoshop, and let's actually just name this layer before I forget. Don't want to do that. Okay, I'm just going to call it maybe base scuffs dark. Okay, and the reason I'm naming it dark is because I think I'm going to add a few lighter ones on top of it. Okay, just because sometimes when you see plastic like this and it gets scraped, it actually turns lighter, almost white. Okay, so let's add a few of those quickly. Alright, make a new layer above our scuff layer. And let's go change the color. Alright, I'm just going to use a lighter gray shade. Okay, and we'll just go back to the paintbrush, and let's actually zoom in here first. Alright, we'll just add a few of these. We don't need very many. Okay, so let's go back to the paintbrush. I'm just going to turn my UVs back on so we can see our corners. And we'll just go to the paintbrush. And I'm just going to use the same brush again. And I'm just going to go in and just very lightly just add a few lighter scuffs. Okay, just so maybe something hit the corner there, or up here at the top, maybe something scraped it. I might just darken this color up a little bit too. I think it's a little too light. Okay, and we'll just add maybe a streak. I'm just going to shrink the brush down a little bit for that one. Okay, and let's erase the center again where the recess is. Alright, I don't want to overdo it, I'm just going to add a few. And you could even add different color ones if you want to, so it looks like something that was maybe painted or colored actually scraped it. Alright, so I might just do that quickly. Alright, I'm just going to maybe add a slight blue color one somewhere. Just give it a... Alright, let's make sure we're on the paintbrush. Alright, just like that, and yeah, you can do a bunch of different ones if you wanted to. Alright, might just add a brownish one somewhere. Just ding one of these corners. Alright, so really subtle. Alright, turn off the UVs. Okay, I think that's, that's more than enough, I think. And you can do that, as much as you want or as little as you want. Alright, I'm not really liking this one up here, so I think I'm just going to trash that one. This one up here. Okay, so we'll say that's cool for the light scratches. Let's actually name that layer while we're at it. Okay. We'll just call it the same thing, base scuffs light. Okay, and I'm just going to leave the blend mode at normal and 100%, I think, for these. Alright, so with that done, let's do one more save and just take a look at Max quickly. Okay, so not too bad. I'm not liking this one right here though, so I'm just going to trash that one. Alright, so back to the eraser, and we'll just get rid of it. Okay, and save again. So I think we're pretty much done the diffuse map. I think what I might do before we finish it up though is I'm not really liking the way this looks here. So I think I'm going to just reorder some of the layers here. Alright, so I'm just going to drag this up a bit so we can see. And I think what I'm going to do is just select the logo layers. So the wing logo 1 and 2, the Canada logo, Canada Post, and the collection ×1. And I'm just going to move them down a little farther in the stack here, just so we get some scuffs and stuff on those as well, so they don't look so, plain just sitting there. Alright, so let's just drag those guys all down at once, and we'll go right down underneath the body metal layer and drop them. Okay, and it's just going to darken it up a little bit, and you can see here that it just adds some scuffs and stuff to the labels there, okay, just to make it look a little more dirty. Alright, and just thinking if we need to do anything else before we finish it up. Alright, this color variation 2 layer, I think I might just take the opacity down a little bit more on it so it's not so intense. Okay, I'll take it down maybe to 25%. Alright, just going to see if there's anything else I want to tweak here. Just going to go down to the original paint color variation layer and just tweak that. I think it might be a little too intense. I might just take it down slightly. Alright, let's take that down maybe to like 15% or so, just so it's not so noticeable. Okay, so one last thing I think I'll do, this Canada Post label here on the front, the edges look a little intense, a little sharp, so I think just to blend that in a little better, I'm just going to go and select that layer, and I'm just going to go over to the blur tool. Okay, and if it's not there, you can just hold down the left mouse button and select it. Alright, and mine's set to 87% strength, and I'm just going to maybe blur this edge just quickly, just with one pass in each direction. Okay, just so it's not so wicked intense around the edges, okay? Alright, so I think that's all I'm going to do, and feel free to tweak it more if you want to until you're happy with the way it looks, but I think that'll take care of the diffuse map for the tutorial. So let's do a save. Okay, so let's just jump back over to Max and just take one last look at it. Alright, make sure everything's the way you want it. Okay, I think I'm going to leave mine like this. It's looking a little dark, but when we get some lights in here it'll look brighter, so I'm just going to leave it. If you want to tweak yours more you can, but I'm going to move on and do the bump map now, so we'll go back over to Photoshop. Alright, so for the bump map I'm just going to actually turn off probably quite a few of these layers, and we'll just desaturate most of them and tweak the brightness and the contrast to get it the way we want. Alright, so I'm going to start on the paint base layer at the bottom there, and we'll just desaturate this to get rid of the color. So let's do image adjustments, desaturate. Okay, just get the red out of there. For the paint color variation, I'm going to do the same thing. Alright, desaturate. Okay, I might just lighten this one up a little bit, so let's do image adjustments, and you can use the hue saturation or the brightness and contrast. I'm just going to open up the hue saturation and just up the lightness here a little bit. Alright, we'll go up maybe like plus 50 or so. Again, that's going to depend on how it looks to you. Alright, so we'll say OK on that, and we can always come back and tweak these after. Alright, so the body dirt layer, I think I'm just going to turn that one off because I don't think we really need it on our bump map. Okay, so we'll get rid of that. And for the logos here on the sides, I'm pretty sure those are actually a sticker stuck onto the side of the box, so I'm going to leave them on the bump map, but if it was painted on I'd turn them off completely, because you don't want to have any bump showing up if it's just paint. So we'll leave it on, and I'm just going to maybe tone it down a bit so it's not too intense. Alright, so let's do the same thing here. I'm just going to desaturate it. Alright, and then we'll just adjust the brightness here. Alright, so I'm going to tone it down quite a bit. I don't want it to be sticking out too much on the bump map, so we'll go down to like maybe negative 85 or so on the brightness and say OK. Alright, then we'll do the same thing with the second one. Desaturate, brightness, contrast, and we'll just take it down to about negative 85 as well. And OK. And I'm going to do the same thing on the logo here for Canada. Alright, I think that's a sticker. So we'll do the same thing, desaturate, just in case there's any color left in it, and brightness, contrast, and we'll just take that down so it's fairly faint. Alright, I'm just going to cancel that for a sec. I'm going to use the hue saturation. Take that down a little bit. Alright, maybe -40 or so on the lightness, and we'll say OK. Alright, the same goes for these guys. I'm pretty sure they're stickers, so let's just, I might fill that actually with a solid color. So I'm just going to use the magic wand on the can of the post layer, just select it, and I'm going to hit Control-Shift-I to invert the selection so we just have the sticker selected. Okay, and then I'm just going to go over here and just grab a medium kind of gray color, and we'll just use the paintbrush here to just fill that in. Okay, just make the brush a bit bigger. Alright, I'm just going to paint over it. Okay, and you can use a soft brush for this. I'm just using the scratch brush still, but either way it doesn't matter. Okay, like that, we'll just fill it in, and let's maybe tone that down a bit. Alright, brightness, contrast, and we'll just take it down. I just want it to be a slight bump. Don't want it to be, you know, intense. So let's take it down to maybe -40 or so. That looks probably okay. And we'll say OK, and we'll just repeat the process on the collection ×1. Alright, so we'll select that layer, magic wand. Alright, select it, Control-Shift-I to invert it, and then we'll just paint it again. Fill that in. Okay? Just like that. Okay, let's do a save actually before we keep going here, just in case we have a crash or a problem. Alright, so I'm just going to save this onto my desktop, and we'll just call it mailbox bump, and do a PSD again. Alright, save, and OK. Okay, so let's just move up a bit, and for the color variation 2 layer here, this rusty one, I think I'm just going to turn that one off because I don't think we really need it on the bump map. Okay, and let's see if there's anything else we can turn off. Alright, I'm also going to get rid of the paint dings there, those little scratches. We don't need those, I don't think. And the boot print, we don't want that showing up on our bump map, so let's turn that off as well. The tag, we don't need that, so let's get rid of it. Okay. Alright, let's also turn off the slot metal. And I don't think we need the scuffs on here, so let's turn those off. Scuff light and scuff dark. Okay, we don't need those showing up on our bump. Okay, let's also do the text layers here. So I'm just going to select the pull layer, and let's just zoom in on it. Alright, we obviously don't want it blue there, so let's actually just go to the text tool and just select it. Okay. And we'll just change the color to maybe a darker gray shade. We want it to look actually pushed into the door, so we want this to be somewhat dark. Alright, so we'll just go down like that maybe, and then say OK. And then I'm also going to open up the rollout here for the effects and just turn off the inner shadow by hitting the eyeball. Okay, because we don't need that showing up either. Alright, and just to make sure it's not too sharp on our bump map, I'm actually going to just blur that, I think. So we'll go up here to filter, down to blur, and we'll just go over and hit blur. Okay, and it'll ask you if you want to raster size the layer, so just say OK. Alright, now I'll just give it a subtle blur, alright, just so the edges aren't too sharp on a bump map. Okay, and we'll do the same thing on the push layer. Alright, let's just find that. It's up here on the top. Okay, and it's kind of hard to see. It's still there, but I'm just going to change the color on that. Okay, so let's select it. Alright, and we'll just change the color. Alright, this one I'm going to make it a little darker so you can see it. Alright, it doesn't have to be crazy dark, but maybe like that, or a little darker maybe. Okay, and we'll say OK, and again I'm just going to turn off the inner shadow on that layer, and we'll give it the blur. Alright, filter, blur. Alright, so that should take care of the text layers. Alright, so let's just see what else we want to do. Alright, let's just fit this back on screen so we can see a little easier. Okay, so let's go down maybe to the body metal layer here. Alright, we'll select that, and I'm just going to desaturate it. Okay, just to get rid of any color, and let's maybe adjust the brightness on that one. Just going to open up the hue saturation and do it here. Alright, you want to kind of have just a medium kind of tone of gray over the paint, so it's not, you know, too bumpy looking. Alright, so I'm just going to take that up maybe to, let's do maybe like +35 or so for now, and we'll say OK. Okay, and for the gray base plastic color here, I'm just going to actually lighten that up as well. Okay, so we'll do image adjustments, brightness, contrast, and we'll just take the brightness up a bit. Alright, we don't want it to be too intense. Just going to kind of get a medium shade of gray on it. Okay, do maybe 60 or so on the brightness, and okay. Alright, this base dirt layer here, I think I'm just going to turn that off because we don't need it. Alright, let's just do a quick save. Alright, I think we'll turn this one off as well, and we'll just move up to the small splatter. And I do want to keep this one on the bump map, just because if that was actually mud or something splattered on there, it would be slightly raised above the surface. Okay, so I might keep that on the bump map, even if it's just subtle. Alright, so what I might do is just invert it. Alright, so I'm going to hit Control I. Okay, to invert the layer. Okay, and then we'll set the mode up here to screen. Okay, just so we can see through it again. And that looks a little intense. Let's take it down on the opacity. Alright, I just want it to be there subtly, so let's do maybe like 45 or so on the opacity. That should be fine. Alright, so we'll just move on. Alright, so the base gram 2 layer, I'm just going to, I think, desaturate that one as well. Okay, and let's just maybe tweak the opacity a little bit. Right, I'm going to leave it on multiply and just do maybe 60% on that one. You could turn it off if you wanted to, but I'm just going to leave it on. Alright, so we only got a few left. I'm just going to desaturate this foot metal layer, even though it's probably not going to make much difference, but we'll just desaturate that. Alright, and let's just see how the opacity is. Alright, I might just leave that at like 65%. Okay, and then I think we're pretty much just left with our scratch layer. Okay, so let's select that. We want these to be dark, obviously, so they look like they're actually scratched into the surface. So let's just go up and open up the hue saturation. Okay, and we'll just take the lightness down a bit. Right, I don't want to make them pitch black, but we want to darken them up quite a bit. So let's maybe take the lightness down to -86 or so. Just say okay. Let's actually zoom in so we can actually see what they look like. Alright, we still have the stroke turned on, so let's turn that off. Okay. Let's see how they look here. Alright, you might want them a little darker than that, so I'm just going to open that back up. Alright, we'll just go down a little darker. Alright, maybe -50 or so on the lightness that time, and okay. Alright, take a quick look. Okay, so I think that should be okay, so let's take one last look. Alright, just make sure I didn't miss anything here. I think we pretty much got everything we needed to. I think I might just brighten up the base paint layer a little bit. So let's do that quickly. Alright, just take the brightness up just a little bit. Do like maybe 20 or so. And okay, and then let's go up to this body metal one. Okay, I'm just going to tweak that a little bit too. Alright, so we'll do brightness contrast. Alright, I'm just going to take the brightness up slightly. Maybe like 15 or so. Okay, I'm going to take the contrast up to maybe like 10 or so. Okay. Alright, so I think that's pretty much everything we need to do for our bump map. Okay, so let's just do another save now that we have it done. And we'll move on and actually start creating the spec map.